Hey, I'm your host, Melissa, and I want to welcome you to Not Your Average Blonde podcast. I'm here to show you how to elevate your life to become the best version of yourself. I want to take you along your journey to be anything but average and step into your confidence era. Join me each week by subscribing and listening to Not Your Average Blonde podcast, and let's begin our journey to become anything but average. Hello, Not Your Average Besties. So I want to thank you for joining me today on another episode of Not Your Average Blonde. First off, thank you so much for those who are returning and listening again to yet another episode. I know I took quite a long hiatus with getting you a new episode and publishing one, and I apologize for that. This last month and a half has been quite a whirlwind of events. Traveled quite a bit, both for personal traveled a little bit for work. I also got really sick. COVID loves to kick my ass, and that took me down for a few weeks and kind of made my voice not my own. Made it a little bit difficult to speak sometimes as well too. And then coughing has been like another topic. So yeah, I absolutely hate COVID. It wrecks me every single time I get it. But the past few weeks have been like pretty good. Like I said, minus getting sick. Quick little recap or just update for end of April and May. I did a little bit of traveling. I did kind of a YOLO weekend trip with one of my really good friends who lives out on the East Coast. We actually the week of, I sent her a text and asked her hey, do you want to go to Vegas this weekend? So particular weekend, I think it was end of April, early May, one of my favorite bands all time had a concert in Vegas, and it was one of 3 concerts that they were playing here in the US for this year. And I've been going back and forth for several weeks of do I want to go to this concert? Do I not? Vegas can be kind of expensive, but I also really like this band and they put on a very, very good show. When am I going to get to see them again? And I saw them for the first time ever in my life last year, and it was phenomenal. It was such a good experience. And when I found out that they were playing here in the US this year, I had really, really wanted to go, but I, like I said, vacillated quite a bit on the decision for it. And then hit that point a few days before their concert, and I was you know what? I'm going to do this. It's my birthday month. Haven't treated myself in a while. I don't do this often. Just do it. What's the worst that's going to happen? Make it happen. And, I texted one of my friends just kind of on a whim. I honestly didn't really think she was going to be able to swing it, but she was able to actually make it work out with her work and get the time off last minute. And we both, worked throughout the week. We flew out that Friday, I think afternoon or evening to catch a Friday night concert. Made it to Vegas, checked into our hotel, got ready, got a quick bite, and then, of course, a few drinks. We had so much fun. I went to the concert that night, and it was such a blast. And a huge shout out to her because she's not a fan of this band. She's never heard of it before. It's more of a metal band or a rock band, so very loud and kind of aggressive music. Such a fun energy, and she completely just rolled with it, and we had an absolute blast. So we spent Friday night doing that. Saturday morning, I got up. She slept in. I got up, went and got a workout. And then we kind of did the day where we just kind of chilled. It was the right amount of energy and excitement and adventure. And then we spent the rest of the day just kind of relaxing. We booked massages and we went to the spa. Since she humored me the night before with going to this rock concert, I let her pick, we made the decision of hey, you pick the activities for, what you want to do Saturday evening and Saturday night. And so we went to a medieval tournament, and which was good. Had one of those eat with your food or eat with your finger kind of meals and stuff like that, and watch jousting, and it was a lot of fun. Got to kind of embrace our inner Vikings, because we're both blonde and have Viking heritage and stuff. But it was so much fun. And then afterwards, of course, we went and caught Thunder Down Under show because why not? You're in Vegas, let's go see what it's about. And it was good. It was it was an experience. I don't know if I would do it again, but it was, like I said, it was definitely like a YOLO weekend. And then Sunday, got up, worked out again, and then we checked out, and then we flew back home. We both had work like early Monday morning. So it was such a good weekend. It was exactly like what we needed to just take that time, reconnect, had a lot of adventure and some new experiences. Like I highly recommend it. And it was also one of those experiences too that, like, here we are, so many weeks later, and her and I are still talking about it and planning like our next trip. And definitely reinvigorated us to embracing like more of those experiences, seek out more of that adventure in life. And it's, like I said, something as simple as find like a cheap flight and like just go somewhere new. But I want to tie that into like today's episode. So I'm pretty excited for today's episode. It's been a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and something that I have a lot of passion for, and something that I have built into my life both unintentionally and intentionally. And the topic is like the adventure within. The theme of today's episode is, I just want to talk to you about like embracing that adventure and then stepping outside of your comfort zone. Embrace, travel and the opportunities that come along with it. There's so much that you can benefit from that. It expands your mindset. You foster like personal growth. You gain a greater sense of understanding and appreciation of the world and the diversity that's like within it. And like overall, like you live a more enriched life. Like I know for me, some of the travel experiences I've had, granted, I've been pretty fortunate to have been exposed to travel from, a very young age, just with the opportunity and like the type of work that my dad did growing up. I've moved on average about every 2-3 years like of my life. And so I've been able to see a lot of different like perspectives and like culture, both overseas as well as like here throughout like the United States. But overall, like it has been an incredibly positive impact in my life, and it has given me so much more enrichment and fulfillment in my life. And who doesn't want that? I don't think I've met anyone who doesn't want that. And so I wanted to break that down a little bit more for you today and kind of dive into, finding that adventure within and the importance of adventure in your life. So the first topic is, how adventure and like travel and the impact that has like on expanding your mindset. We focus a lot on this podcast, like on your mindset and, building like the life that you want and cultivating, like connection. And a lot of today's episode is on, what it does for your mind. So I kind of jotted down, I was actually flying this last weekend and started kind of jotting down some notes as I was thinking about this, and took a couple of like bullet point notes like on my phone about, like what are the ways like I have found that like my mind has been expanded like through adventure. The first one that I wrote down was just like getting culturally immersed into, new experiences. When you travel to new places, even here within like the United States, you go to different parts of the country, and like West Coast is very different than like the Northeast, and the Northeast is very different than like the Southeast. And, the Midwest is very different than any other part of the US. And then compound all of that when you go to other countries and you go overseas. The experience that you gain from, immersing yourself in these different cultures, it provides you with like a different way of like thinking. You see different ways of living. And this aspect alone has just given me such a unique perspective in terms of like how I live my life and the mindset and the ideas and stuff that I have. It's expanded my mind and it's given me like a much deeper, understanding, and then also appreciation for others, like ways of life. Now I go to some of these cultures and I definitely don't want to live like the way that they do, but like I can appreciate and like respect like what they have and like the way that they live. And, newsflash, guess what? Like you can disagree with some of the ideas and thoughts that other people have and the way that they live, and still peacefully, experience it and have those connections with, with other people. I know, quite controversial in today's culture and climate, but it's so good for you to do that, to, push yourself outside of your comfort zone and go and see and learn that appreciation for others' way of life. Like I said, even if it's not how you would choose to live your life. I've been incredibly grateful for this perspective because it's given me the opportunity to break through some preconceived ideas that I've had about other cultures or different like societies, other people. One of the biggest adventures I've had like in my life was when I moved to the Middle East quite a few years ago. Well, not even quite a few years ago. Like I'm not that old, but a few years ago after my undergrad, I was going through, the end of a divorce. I was really young. My life kind of imploded. It was like the perfect storm, but I had this opportunity that presented itself that allowed me to be able to move to the Middle East. And for about a year, I was able to like study and like live over there. And at the time, it was such a breath of fresh air. I learned so much, and it broke a lot of stereotypes like of the region for me. And I was able to see and experience a much more positive and loving side of different cultures that, exist like throughout like the region. I was able to travel to quite a few different countries, and each country is very, very unique over there. They're not all one and the same. They're vastly different. They have their own heritage. They have their own culture. They have their own, like nuances. And throughout that experience, like I made some pretty good friends that taught me about like their different perspectives and the meanings and like their approach to have that, that they have in life. They've showed me a bit of like what it means to live and to love in life, which was exactly like what I needed at the time. My life in the States prior to moving had, like I said, it just completely imploded. It was the perfect storm of events, and I was not in the best like place like in my life. Like I was such a different woman than who I am today, but moving over there, it really forced me to like push myself outside of my comfort zone into a world that was, no pun intended, it was like completely foreign. And by taking that leap of faith and like moving to the Middle East, it required me to step outside of my comfort zone. I could have stayed here in the US and kept going through like the shit that I was going through. And, I don't know. I honestly, I don't know. I don't think about that much. That's actually pretty rare when I think back, like one on that time, but then also like kind of the what ifs. I'm not really a big like what if person when it comes to like analyzing like my past like actions. Like I try to embrace like my past with, a lot of grace and acceptance of the decisions I made and where I was at. So when I moved to the Middle East, this was, and I will caveat like this may be an extreme example for some of you guys. Even for me, it was pretty extreme. Like when I told my parents, like, hey, I got this opportunity, like, I think I'm going to take it. And then instead of going from, I think I'm going to take it, like, I'm going to do this, like, they thought I was absolutely insane. They weren't exactly like the most, like, they were supportive, but they definitely had a lot of reservation with my decision at the time. And honestly, like, I just didn't really feel like I had anything to lose at that time. Like, I just was in such a rough spot, like, in my life. But like I said, it was, looking back, it was what I needed in my life at that time. It, forced me to navigate unfamiliar environments and situations. My confidence and my resilience, it grew so much like from that experience, which was something that like I desperately needed. It was such a breath of like fresh air. And I, like I said, I was going through like the final stages of the divorce, and like it felt like my world was imploding between like the divorce, and then I had some other stuff that was going on at the time too. And my confidence and self-esteem was just, it was at an all-time low. It was pretty much almost like non-existent. It's crazy looking back because I'm such a different woman than who I am today, and someone who like I honestly don't even really recognize anymore. I have a lot of grace for her, but here I am now, and it's pretty fucking amazing. But I learned how to trust again, and I learned how to see more of like the beauty in life. Like I was able to work through the distrust that I had going through those, those experiences. And I learned to work through like the cloudedness of just being jaded with life overall. And the experience and travel, is what helped me to discover some of those new strengths. And I was able to see capabilities that like I didn't even know that I had. I didn't even know I had it like within me at the time. It helped me to learn how to relate and how to communicate with others. I learned how to build trust again. Most importantly, like I learned how to start the journey of like loving myself and loving life again. Not only did I learn how to like trust other people again, but I learned how to trust myself again. I learned how to trust my intuition. And that was something I was able to cultivate after experience through a different lens. From having some of these adventures and like travel within my life, like I gained so many new like worldviews and like and ideas. Not even just like in the Middle East. Like I've traveled quite a bit throughout like Europe, little bits of Africa, But like going to like all these different places and regions and countries and cities, towns, I was exposed to just vastly different like political, social, economic systems. Some are good and some bad. Some are pretty neat, were, absolutely inspiring. And I'll get into that a little bit more here, like in a bit. And others were bad, that in the sense of like, I never want to live my life that way. I can respect that others live that way. And if it works for them, it works for them. But it's, may not necessarily be what's best for me. But throughout all of that, I also learned the art of communication. And this is something that like I've kind of realized is quite lost here in the United States. It honestly makes me pretty sad how as a society we have lost our ability to connect and communicate with others on a deep level. It's one of those aspects that like I honestly really miss, when I travel overseas or even like living overseas, is that art of communication. I learned a lot about it in Europe and the Middle East. It just hits like on that deep soul level. It's nothing like the superficial level that we have here in US society where, for example, like we ask people like, how are you doing? It's a meaningless statement. It's not even a question. It's a statement. Like we don't expect a response, or if we do expect a response, it's a generic response of like, oh, good. Rarely do people actually genuinely want to know or mean like how you are actually doing. Versus, you go to other places and you ask someone like, oh, like, how are you doing? And they'll tell you, like their life story. And they'll tell you what just happened or like what they're going through, or something that they just like saw, or something cool, or just whatever. Like it's a conversation starter. Like it opens up that conversation and that insight into like their world and like their experiences. And some of the conversations I've had with people from all over the world, like I said, who come from different backgrounds and experiences, it's really shown me a lot of like just new ideas and concepts and philosophies. And it's pretty amazing. I can't stress enough just how good it is for the mind and for the soul, and heavily encourage you, to keep working on that. And I hope to use this platform to kind of like teach you and to show you a little bit more about like communication and and connection, because communication is so crucial for connection, and connection's been a journey and like a very intense. I've been very like focused on like the intent of building like connection. Mixing up my words here. It's pretty late. But focusing on like connection and cultivating and fostering that more like within like my life, both with myself as well as like with other people. So back to more of the content, but what I'm trying to help relay is that like it's incredibly stimulating to be around. You're around like the different energy, you're around like the new environments and experiences. And I have found like throughout my adventures, and travels, whether it's, domestic or abroad, I find myself to be incredibly inspired. And like I said, it can be so simple. It can be as simple as like going to a local coffee shop, so you don't even have to leave your own town. Just go to a different coffee shop that like you've never been to before. Start there. You can start small. It kind of reminds me of two experiences that, I want to talk about. Both are actually in the same city. Probably one of my favorite cities I absolutely love going to. It's quite inspiring, is Doha, Qatar. And there's two places there in Doha that I particularly like to go. And I learn so much every single time I go. It's pretty wild. The first one is this like there's this quaint coffee shop that's like on the Persian Gulf. I'm not going to give the name because I like to maintain like anonymity for the location, and it's kind of like just a very like pleasant like healing spot like for me. It's a very hole in the wall place, but it has this mixture of like indoor and outdoor seating, which is common for their beautiful views of like the Gulf. And it's owned by this absolutely badass like Greek woman. She's got like short hair, but she just has like really like warrior like energy, and just such a cool like aura that she has like kind of around her. And it's really neat. But I had a conversation with her one day and got to learn a little bit more about her past and kind of her journey of like how she, how this lady from like Greece went from living on, this one island to, kind of hitting that fuck it point where she like one day she just like up and moved and just completely restarted her life in Qatar. And she told me her story about how just events just unfolded. She took that chance, she took that risk, she took that adventure and moved on, and uprooted like her life. She like liquidated everything back in Greece, like moved to Qatar, like not knowing anyone, not knowing much honestly about like the culture. And she didn't know if she was going to be able to make it. she, spent, little bit of time, like in country, and again, like the art of communication. It's crazy, like the connections and the people that you meet, when you learn how to communicate with others. But she met, this local couple who decided to sponsor her and who took that leap of faith in her, invested in her to like open up like her own coffee shop and run her business, and they sponsored her visa so that way she can, stay, since she's not like a local national. But she, opened up this coffee shop, and she now to this day still runs like her own business there. Such an inspiring like story. And some of the people that go through this coffee shop are absolutely amazing too. Quite a few locals, a lot of meetings. You can tell I've spent quite a few hours just sitting there and just reflecting. But another location that's also in Doha is this like gorgeous hotel. They have the most beautiful like pool, very well maintained gardens. It's incredibly like private, and the food and tea are just out of this world. Like some of the best I've ever had like on this planet. But I love going to either of these places and to just sit. I'll usually will order like a coffee or tea, and then when I'm hungry, like one of my favorite dishes is like chicken Caesar salad. I'll bring like a notebook and a pen. I'll bring, like a study book. So in this case, usually I'd bring like my Arabic book and do a little bit of studies like while I was there. Maybe my laptop or just my phone. But what I gained the most like from these experiences by sitting and taking in the energy of the environment and just taking that time to reflect. And more often than not too, I also usually meet people there. I've had quite a few people just kind of approach me, or they're just curious, or that just like start, like I said, with just like casual like conversation. And I've, learned some just incredible and like inspiring like stories, like from meeting people, from just taking that time just to go and be present and sit and just be like in that environment. Some of the conversations and opportunities have been absolutely pretty amazing. What stood out to me like the most with these conversations and some of these people that like I've met, especially like the women, oh my goodness, like talk about some like really badass women, and not just like this Greek lady, but like some of these like local ladies are like absolutely killing it. I have so much respect for them, and just by and large, just the amount of energy, whether it's like local or foreigners that have like come there who, taken a chance like on their life, that took that leap of faith, has been, pretty inspiring to hear like the stories and like where they've come from. And, it's anywhere from, like I said, like this badass like Greek to like I've met some women from the Philippines, which I know slight caveat, like I know Qatar is known for a lot of like human rights violations and stuff like that. I don't want to dive into that. I just want to focus on some of these positive experiences that I've had. But like I met this phenomenal like Filipino lady who, came to Qatar trying to seek like a better opportunity like in her life. She, lucked out with like the right couple who, hired her and helped support her to be able to build her own business. And she actually runs and manages like a cleaning business for several, local Qatari families, as well as a lot of like expats that are there. And she's, being able to save up enough to be able to like support her family like back at home, provide for her kids, pay for her children's like college education, and to be able to like sponsor like her kids, to be able to launch themselves into a different like economic, like status, especially for where they came from. And one of her hopes, like when I'd met her, she was only a couple months away from like retiring. And, she was telling me about like her retirement plans and some of her business plans, but like her dream was, was to go back to the Philippines, and she had already bought like the land for it. She'd already like built the church, but she wanted to go back to like the Philippines and like open up her own like ministry services and help out like some of the poor, that were there in the community, and then be able to teach and just spread like good word. And she was pretty amazing. She was so kind. I actually, the place I was staying, I was staying at like a local like apartment. She was actually the housekeeper like at that apartment, and I would talk with her every day and would help her out and stuff like that. And she was incredibly sweet. But going back to some of these locations, I've met quite a few like local ladies as well too. A lot of like business women who would openly like discuss like their business plans. And one of the coolest things was just like hearing about like their hopes and aspirations that they had for their future, the plans that they had at work, or some of the businesses that they were running, or the academics that they were pursuing, their dreams with that. Absolutely inspiring. And it was pretty cool to see, just kind of like break through like that stereotype, because a lot of times like we think, especially here like in the US, that like the Middle East is incredibly like repressive like for women. And meeting some of these women and talking with them and getting to understand like their story a little bit more, and even going to like college, like I went to some of the campuses like over there and got to see like some of their classes, and what their visions and dreams that they had like for their future was honestly was pretty inspiring. I met this one lady who was there. She was at that really nice like hotel I was telling you about. She was there with her family, and she was one of the first women in the GCC, so they're like in the Persian Gulf, to successfully like divorce her husband and retain custody of her children under local law, which, remember, it's this is the Middle East, and a lot of these countries still operate under like Sharia law. And I expressed that like this is huge, because like under Islam, under Sharia, the responsibility of the children like belongs to the father, the man. And she was one of the first women to gain like full custody of her children, which was pretty groundbreaking. Absolutely like inspiring, her story, and like meeting her daughter and hearing her family's like stories. It was really, really cool. But I can talk for much longer on some of the stories of some of these people that like I've come across, but like I've met so many others who have shared like their goals and like their hard work to be able to build their own life and then the vision of their future for themselves and their family and like their nation. A lot of these people have took that leap of faith. They took that chance. They took that adventure and pursued like a different life, and kind of really pushed themselves like out of their comfort zone. Through these conversations, some people would ask for advice. Some of it was just just friendly like conversation, just getting to know each other. But overall, a lot of these like stories, that stands out as I'm, talking about them to you. It was just profoundly inspiring, and it was very easy to catch on to like some of the innovation, and it was inspiring for like, it just reinvigorated like that zeal for like your own future and to be able to pursue like your own dreams. And that's why I like taking that time to like, when I travel, I love to take that time just to sit down someplace and like grab a coffee or get a salad or whatever it may be, and just sit there and just be present. I absolutely love coffee because for me, it has a lot of grounding effects. I use coffee as like a method of just slowing down in life. Just kind of counterintuitive with all the caffeine that it has in it, but I love taking that chance to sit down and take in the environment and to reflect. Especially like when I'm traveling, I will intentionally build this like into my itinerary, which I'm not very strict when I travel, but I will definitely take that time to slow down, reflect, go get a cappuccino and, a croissant, and just sit there and take in the environment, just take in the space. And you can do this at home, which I highly encourage you to. I do this probably about once a month or every other month. I prefer monthly if I can, but I like to take that time to go someplace and reflect like on my own life, review your goals, go over your values, go over your dreams, make a vision board, read a little bit of a book or just something inspiring. I'm currently reading through Richard Branson for like Virgin, of like the Virgin group. So we're talking like Virgin Cruises, Virgin Airlines, Virgin Records, Virgin Galactic. He has such an incredibly inspiring story, and he's written quite a few books. I'm reading through a few of them right now and just gleaning from some of his life lessons. But he's one of those people like I really look up to, and because he pushes himself to like pursue that adventure. He pushes himself out of that comfort zone. He takes those risks. He takes those chances on himself, and that's another one of those things like I just want to share with you like throughout this podcast. But it starts with taking that time, go sit in that coffee shop and, review, like I said, like your goals, your dreams, assess where you're at in your timeline, reevaluate like what you want your future to be. I do this like when I'm traveling. I also do it while I'm at home. Like I'll pick a coffee shop like I've never been to before. If I'm here at home, I'll go and take in like new surroundings. But the most important thing is like you're embracing like the mindfulness, and you're taking that opportunity to appreciate like where you are like in that present moment. If I have a little bit of time, like I'll add in, a little bit of studying, which, expands like my mind. I love being able to build my mind. I'm a huge fan of being like a lifelong learner. But you can also, bring like a new book. Or, for me, like right now I'm working on my Pilates certification, or if I'm overseas, I'll bring like my Arabic book, or, like anatomy or whatever, whatever it may be, just something to kind of build your mind like a little bit, just kind of like open it up a bit more. But with a language, kind of going back to like adventure and like pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone and like traveling, I'll, especially overseas, I'll buy like a language book or download like an app. I prefer books actually over like utilizing like my phone to learn languages, but it absolutely amazed me with just like how far learning a new language goes with connecting with other people. It's, again, that art of communication. And I'm not talking like fluency levels here, just basic attempts to communicate in another language goes so far with connecting with others. And it also increases like your cognitive ability. Something as simple as like learning how to say hello, thank you, just basic foundational items of a language. But the fact that like you're trying goes so far with most people, especially with, from my experience, like with Arabic. I studied Arabic for like several years during my undergrad and graduate education, and have experience in a few other languages as well too. But by and large, like learning other languages and learning just a basic knowledge of it just goes so far with, just generalized like travel. And when you go to like these new environments, it also encourages you to want to learn just a little bit of that language. I know for me, I get pretty frustrated if I'm someplace and I can't speak even something as simple as like saying hello or asking the price for something. So, it's like learning numbers, how to say thank you, how to order like basic things. I love pushing myself out of the comfort zone and challenging my mind to be able to like learn like those things. But like I said, it improves your communication skills, and it shows a great deal of respect with those that you interact with. It's one thing here, slight tangent, like I don't understand why here in the US, why we mock those who are learning English, which, by the way, like English is a very difficult language with no logical foundation compared to others. I have so much respect for other people who English is not their first language and they're trying to learn English, especially like American English. We have so much slang, and like our dialects are pretty wild too. I mean, there's even some English speakers like I can't understand. There's some parts of the country, especially in like the deep South, and like I struggle to understand. But I have a lot of respect for those who are learning English. And by and large, like with my experience, most people are very receptive to it, with the exception of the French. They just love to roast you for how terrible your French is or for not knowing it like well enough. It's an art form for them. But I digress. But by and large, like attempting to learn and speak like another language is positively received. And I know with like learning like a new language, there is definitely is an intimidation factor of like how you're gonna be received, how you're gonna be perceived by other people. But I promise it's all in your head. Which like the biggest thing that's holding you back, just in general, especially from pursuing like more adventure, is living your life in fear. It's that mindset, it's that fear mindset. And this is where it's so crucial to like push yourself to get outside of your routine. Go out and meet new people, push yourself outside of your comfort zone, go gain new experiences, go see new environments. If you're in a relationship, what better way to like build your relationship and learn more about each other? Use them as like an accountability partner. Push both of yourselves outside of your comfort zone together. Explore the new place and build those bonds. Like make the most of those days like with each other. If you need a little bit of a break, build some of that in. Maybe do like separate spa days or something like that. But like by and large, go through that experience and that journey together. You need that little bit of crazy in your life and in your relationship to kind of like build and to like grow it. And if you're unsure of like how you'll travel with each other, define which role you each want to take. Maybe one of you is more of a planner. Maybe one of you is more of just like, hey, like I'm along for the ride. Have that conversation beforehand and define like what role that you each want to do. Outline, like I love to, if I'm traveling with like someone, with like a friend, for example, one of the first questions I ask them, besides, like, hey, like, where do you want to go? Once we've narrowed it down of like where we want to go and kind of roughly the time frame, we'll each come up with like a list. And whenever I travel, I always come up with like a list of like places that I want to go. And I'll usually will name like my top 3 like must see or like must do items, and I will prioritize and build those into like my day. So I'll say I'm someplace for like 5 days. I have my top 3 items. So I want to go see number 1. I'll build that into like one day. And I can either spend all day doing that, or I can spend part of the day doing it and then kind of spend the rest of the day kind of as it comes, whether it's like exploring a restaurant or meeting new people or a new experience. Day 2, I'll knock out, the the second item. Day 3, same thing. And then will build in like an additional like flex day, like kind of like a spa day. I absolutely love spa tourism and just kind of seeing like different ways, like different cultures experience like spas and like relaxation. A lot of bathhouses put American spas to shame. But, do that with your partner, like outline that, like build in like a relaxation day and then another day to just kind of like free flow with it. See what life like presents and like what opportunities like come up or cool places that you see. Like it's going with like an open mindset, but like have that conversation with your partner beforehand and then go along with each other like for the adventure. Stop doing like the traditional holidays like Mexico, Colorado. If you're going to like spend all this money, which like I'm not saying like don't do that, like never, maybe do it occasionally, but I know some couples and that's what they do every single year. They go to the same spot because it's safe. It's what they know. It's reliable, which is cool. Like I know there's a lot of like comfort like with that, but maybe do that once a year and then maybe for a second vacation later on in the year, if you can afford it, like go do someplace, something different. But like my mind says like, if I'm going to spend like all that money, why not go outside the norm? Go to the Himalayas, go to Namibia, Bali or Japan or Turkey, what you'd spend like doing like a normal vacation experiences, especially here in the US, like Disney. Oh my gosh. Talk about like absolutely insane prices, like all around. You can go overseas for the same price or even less and get like a completely different like luxury and a much more memorable experience somewhere new. And you push yourself to get outside of your comfort zone. It's a win all around. You can't put a value like on experiences, adventure. It's what helps you like build discipline. It builds your confidence. It builds your self-esteem. And by stepping outside of your comfort zone, you gain a greater sense of yourself and a sense of accomplishment as well. It's supposed to feel scary and it's difficult. Like I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it's incredibly difficult, but guess what? The space of discomfort is where you're going to experience the most growth and where you're going to build some of those like positive experiences and build that edification like into your life. And you may even get some cool like adventure stories out of it. When people get to know me, they'll often comment on my luck and some of my life experiences, which I will say again, I'm biased. Like I think it's pretty amazing, but some of my stories are absolutely pretty wild. Like you can't make this shit up level of crazy, but you know what? It may seem like a lot of experiences because yeah, it is a lot of experiences, but like I live my life intentionally and I try to embrace the experience and the journey and all that comes with it. And some of the most wild experiences makes for some of the best stories. So what are some more tips for like embracing like adventure within your life? Like how do you incorporate more adventure in your life? Like I said, I've already hit on like you got to get out of your comfort zone. It's very easy to live within your comfort zone. And one of the biggest obstacles that people have is overcoming like fear and hesitation. Hey, let's just jump in the deep end and let's like sink or swim. So that's kind of where some of my perspective is coming from with this advice. And, it may work for you, but start out with just book the ticket. We talk ourselves out of experiences and things all the time. Why? It's so easy to stay in the mundane and like the day to day. It's easy to say, I'll do that in the future. I'll do that later. I'll do that when I'm older. Talk is cheap. And guess what? That's a pattern and a precedence that you're setting. You're never going to go on that adventure because you've already allowed yourself to talk yourself out of it. You've already subconsciously have like made up your mindset. One example in my life, and forgive me, mom and dad, if you guys are listening to this, I love you guys, but I look at my parents as an example of this. I honestly don't really think they know I have this podcast. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe they listen, maybe they don't. But one lesson that like I've learned is like they're prime examples of this pattern. They talk a lot about wanting to go travel, wanting to go do these experiences or go on like these grand adventures and like celebrations. And then when it comes time to plan and do it, there's always an excuse. The excuse of, I can't leave work. It's too demanding and it needs me. I need to move this trip back because in a couple of years, I want to dedicate money towards this. It's just an excuse after an excuse. And I don't want to be like flippant. If money is a concern, like I'm not swarming like in cash by like any means, but like if money is a concern, like do the things that you can't afford. Like I said, like if I'm strapped, like I'll go for, down to like a local coffee shop. I'll stick to like local things, stick with what I can afford, or I'll save up for like larger experiences, pick up a side hustle, sell some stuff. I've done that before. I've sold them some things to be able to pay for like a trip or, like a new experience. review your budget and like see where you can cut. Where can you cut and save a little bit, so on like groceries, your cell phone bill, maybe I can cut like that subscription. I don't watch a ton of TV, so, yeah, like I'll cut, like that, Netflix subscription or whatever it is, or switch to like a family account. Whatever it is, if there's a will, there's a way, and you'll find a way to like make it work. Yes, save for your future, but I believe it's about balance. You can still save for your future and for that rainy day while still enjoying like the journey. And my mindset is like money, it's a vehicle for like living your life. You can't live in fear of money, or you're always going to be chasing it, and you're always going to be like living in that fear of not having it. And there's enough money to go around. And like it's like if there's a will, there's a way. Opportunity will present itself, and it's pretty amazing just how the world and how the universe works. And with some of these like experiences, like with opportunity, it's like I said, it's pretty amazing that some of the places and some of the things that will open up and some of the doors that will open, especially if it's within your heart and like within your soul. It's, I haven't really gone into this a whole lot in like manifestation, and manifestation is kind of one of those things like I'm still exploring. But I definitely do believe like if you have like that call, if you have that drive, or if you have that place that's constantly like in your head, you're going to have those options and those opportunities that will present themselves to be able to make that happen, to be able to pursue that dream, to be able to pursue like that place and that travel that you want to go to. Don't focus like on the negatives or like the reasons why not to go explore. Like I said, like for like my parents, like they've had a lot of opportunity and have lived in some pretty amazing places that like the majority of us will never experience. And they constantly have found excuses to not go and explore those places, to not go on that adventure, or to do that dream holiday that they've always wanted. And it makes me sad to see. I've had experiences with them. Something as simple as like going to a museum as like a family. We'd set a day and a time to go. When that day and like time has like rolled around, I'm the only one that's ready to go, and maybe like my sister or something, and I've given them plenty of reminders like, hey, you guys can be ready to go in like an hour, 30 minutes. And when the time came to leave, like they weren't ready. And I, made the decision that like, all right, well, they're not going to move from the couch, and like, I'm already ready to go. We already made this time. Like, I'm going to go with it and still do the activity. And I've had times like where I've left, maybe my sister joined me, and we'll go and enjoy like that museum like ourselves. But like I bring up the story to like iterate a couple of points. Like the first is like there's always going to be an excuse. And second, you just got to do it. Just do it. Even if it means going alone. Talk is easy and cheap, but if you actually want the experience, you've got to do it. And everyone is busy. Everyone has a busy schedule. But you have to make that time in your life to just go and do those trips and adventures and, dedicate your time to it. Like so it can be as simple as, guess what? I'm just going to buy those tickets and I'm going to figure it out. Buy those tickets for 3 or 4 months from now. You're dedicated to it. You've already started to commit to it. And, it's as simple as, pick that 1 week, book the trip, book the airfare or the cruise or whatever it is, and like outline what you want to do, and then like book the hotel, start from there, commit the time to it ahead of time, and then kind of figure it out like as you go. And if that's too daunting, start small and then go bigger. Become more ambitious, like with your goals. Start by changing up your routine. Check out and go and sit at that local new coffee place, or explore a local museum or an outdoor spot in your city, or even like a state. Branch out and go to another state. You can drive. Pick a city and like go there for a weekend and explore it. Find cheap airfare. There's so many different ways that you can do that. And then go bigger and then book that ticket like overseas. What's important though is your mindset. Your mindset's so important, and maintaining a positive attitude. It's so easy to get caught up in the what ifs, and what if there are spiders, or what if I get lost, or what if I can't like communicate, or, what if this, what if that? And you know what? Like, you're capable. You are a capable person, and you have it. It's all in your mindset. You'll figure it out. It's so easy to get caught up in the negatives and the things that are scary, but that's like living from a place of fear, and you don't want to do that. You want to live, in that positive mindset, because like when you have that positive mindset, you're going to attract positive things. You're going to attract good things in your life. Things are going to work out when you have that approach of like, you know what? Like, okay, I may get lost in the city, but like I'm a capable person and I'm going to figure it out. You may get lost, and guess what? You might find like a really cool restaurant or a cool museum, or, some cool piece of like architecture, just, whatever it is that like that fancies that you, that you fancy. Like you just never know like the opportunities that, present itself when you have that mindset. But you don't always need that plan. Sometimes you just need, that new place to go to, trust yourself, trust in the universe, and let go and see what happens. And that's where the adventure lies. So kind of as I'm concluding like this episode, I just wanted to ask you is like, what do you want to do to like live a good life or a better life? For me, like when I go on these adventures, I always come back renewed and my soul is edified and refreshed. I come back and I appreciate the experience and the opportunity for like what I have and the experiences that I had and the lessons that like I learned and the growth that I had. And growth can be as simple as like learning how to relax. But like pursuing like experiences and adventure is one of the many ways that like I celebrate the wins of my life and simultaneously how I build the life that I want. I'm not comparing my life to others or envying what others have. I don't focus on my time and energy on that, but what I focus on is building the life that I want and building that a life that is going to make me content and happy. And I have found adventure as one of those things that helps me to find that helps me to find content. It's very late. Helps me to be able to like find content and happiness like in my life. And that's the beauty of it, because this is the life that like I've created. And you too can have that power like within you to be able to cultivate and to build that life that you want to create, to build that dream, to be able to pursue like those things that like incite like your soul. And so I want to thank you for joining me today, for this episode and for your support as well too. Like I really appreciate all of you who reached out and were like, hey, like when are you releasing your next episode? It's really cool to hear that like other people are listening like to my message and that you find it inspiring too. So thank you for your support and thank you for listening to another episode of Not Your Average Blonde.